His lawyer at the time, Alan Dershowitz, says it was a dramatic time in American criminal history. O.J. Simpson, at this point a fugitive from justice, suspected of murder.
The evidence that shocked investigators came from beneath the floorboards of one of America's most infamous properties. When federal agents arrived at O.J. Simpson's former Brentwood mansion with specialized equipment and search warrants, nobody anticipated the discoveries that would emerge from below ground. The property that had been the center of the most watched criminal trial in American history was about to reveal secrets that had remained hidden for decades. What federal investigators found when they removed those old wooden floors didn't just surprise them, it left seasoned law enforcement professionals speechless and questioning everything they thought they knew about one of the most controversial cases in legal history. The implications of what lay beneath that mansion could rewrite the narrative of the trial of the century and change how we understand one of America's most infamous criminal investigations. O.J. Simpson's Brentwood mansion, located at 360 North Rockingham Avenue, became one of the most recognizable addresses in America during the 1990s. The 6,200-square-foot property served as Simpson's primary residence during the height of his post-football fame and throughout the criminal proceedings that would define his public legacy. The Spanish-style mansion was purchased by Simpson in 1977 for $650,000, a significant investment that reflected his success as both an NFL superstar and emerging entertainment personality. The property featured 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a tennis court, swimming pool, and extensive landscaping that provided privacy from the media attention that would later surround the residence. During the 1994-1995 criminal trial, the mansion became a focal point for media coverage, with news crews maintaining constant surveillance and the property's gate becoming an iconic symbol of the case. The address was mentioned countless times during testimony and legal proceedings as investigators attempted to establish timelines and evidence related to the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. The layout and features of the mansion were extensively documented during the original investigation, with police conducting multiple searches and evidence collection operations throughout the property. Crime scene technicians photographed and measured every room, analyzed blood evidence, and collected potential DNA samples from various locations within the house. Questions arise about what areas of the property might not have been thoroughly examined during the original investigation, and whether technological advances in forensic science might reveal evidence that was previously undetectable or overlooked by room investigants in the 1990s. The original investigation of O.J. Simpson's Brentwood mansion involved extensive forensic examination by the Los Angeles Police Department. Though the thoroughness and competence of that investigation became subjects of intense debate during the criminal trial, defense attorneys successfully argued that evidence collection was contaminated and that investigators made critical errors in processing the crime scene. Detective Mark Fearman's discovery of a bloody glove at the Rockingham property became one of the most controversial pieces of evidence in the case, with defense attorneys alleging that the glove was planted and that Fearman's history of racist statements undermined his credibility as an investigator. The chain of custody for evidence collected from Simpson's mansion was extensively challenged during the trial, with defense experts arguing that contamination and mishandling compromised the reliability of DNA testing and other forensic analysis conducted on materials found at the property. Blood evidence found at various locations throughout the mansion was central to the prosecution's case, though defense attorneys successfully raised questions about how that evidence was collected, stored, and analyzed by crime scene technicians and laboratory personnel. Legal experts note that forensic science has advanced dramatically since the 1990s, with new techniques for DNA analysis, blood pattern interpretation, and trace evidence examination that might reveal information not available to investigators during the original investigation. The Brentwood mansion, where O.J. Simpson lived during the 1990s, represented the pinnacle of his financial success and celebrity lifestyle. The property's value and luxurious amenities reflected Simpson's earnings from his NFL career, acting roles, advertising endorsements, and various business ventures that made him one of America's most recognizable sports figures. The mansion's design and furnishing demonstrated Simpson's taste for expensive art, furniture, and decorative items that created an atmosphere of wealth and sophistication. The property served as a venue for entertaining celebrities, athletes, and entertainment industry figures who were part of Simpson's social circle. The extensive grounds and privacy features of the property allowed Simpson to maintain a secluded lifestyle despite his fame, though this privacy would later become a liability when the mansion became the focus of intense media scrutiny and law enforcement attention. The financial pressures Simpson faced during the 1990s, including legal fees and the civil judgment against him, eventually forced the sale of the mansion. The property was sold in 1997 for $2.63, significantly below its peak value due to the notoriety associated with the criminal case. The implications could suggest that Simpson's lifestyle and financial arrangements during the period leading up to the murders might have created pressures or situations that were not fully explored during the original investigation or subsequent legal proceedings. The technological limitations of forensic science in the 1990s meant that investigators had fewer tools available for evidence detection and analysis than would be available to modern law enforcement agencies. DNA testing was relatively new and time-consuming, blood pattern analysis was less sophisticated, and trace evidence examination relied on techniques that have since been dramatically improved. Modern forensic techniques include advanced DNA analysis that can extract genetic information from smaller and more degraded samples than was possible in the 1990s. These improvements might allow investigators to detect evidence that was previously undetectable or to reanalyze existing evidence with greater precision and reliability. Ground-penetrating radar and other modern investigative technologies can detect disturbances in soil, concrete, and other materials that might indicate hidden evidence or structural modifications that were not apparent to investigators using 1990s-era equipment and techniques. Digital forensics and computer analysis capabilities that are standard in contemporary investigations were largely unavailable during the original Simpson investigation, potentially leaving electronic evidence unexamined or inadequately analyzed. Questions arise about whether modern forensic techniques applied to Simpson's former mansion might reveal evidence that could provide new insights into the events of June 12, 1994, and the subsequent investigation. The media coverage surrounding O.J. Simpson's criminal trial created unprecedented public interest in every aspect of the case, including detailed reporting about his mansion and the evidence collection operations conducted there. This extensive coverage established the property as a landmark in American criminal justice history. Television news crews maintained constant surveillance of the mansion during the investigation and trial, broadcasting live coverage of police searches, evidence collection, and the comings and goings of legal teams and family members. This coverage created a comprehensive visual record of the property and its surroundings during the critical period. The public's fascination with the case extended to curiosity about Simpson's lifestyle and living arrangements, with extensive media reporting about the mansion's features, value, and significance to the criminal charges against him. Documentary filmmakers and journalists have continued to examine various aspects of the Simpson case, including questions about evidence collection and analysis that might warrant reinvestigation using modern techniques and technologies. The lasting public interest in the case has created ongoing speculation about whether all evidence was properly collected and analyzed, and whether new investigative techniques might reveal information that could change understanding of the events and their aftermath. The legal proceedings following O.J. Simpson's acquittal in the criminal trial included a civil lawsuit filed by the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman that resulted in a judgment against Simpson for wrongful death. This civil case involved additional investigation and evidence presentation that was not part of the criminal trial. The different standards of evidence required for criminal versus civil proceedings meant that investigators and attorneys in the civil case had more flexibility in presenting theories and evidence that might not have met the beyond a reasonable doubt standard required for criminal conviction. The civil trial included testimony and evidence about Simpson's financial situation, lifestyle, and activities that provided additional context for understanding his circumstances during the period surrounding the murders. The judgment against Simpson in the civil case created ongoing financial obligations that affected his ability to maintain his previous lifestyle and may have influenced his subsequent legal troubles and financial decisions. Legal experts wonder whether evidence or testimony from the civil proceedings might suggest suggest areas for further investigation or whether new investigative techniques might support or contradict conclusions reached in either the criminal or civil cases. The neighborhood surrounding Simpson's Brentwood mansion included other high-profile residents and security-conscious homeowners who might have observed activities or events that were not fully investigated during the original criminal investigation. The exclusive nature of the area meant that residents valued privacy and might have been reluctant to cooperate fully with law enforcement. Security systems and surveillance equipment that existed in the neighborhood during the 1990s were less sophisticated than contemporary systems, potentializing the availability of video or electronic evidence that might have documented activities around Simpson's property on June 12, 1994. The timeline of events on the night of the murders included Simpson's claimed activities at his mansion, though questions remained about the accuracy and completeness of his account of his whereabouts and actions during the critical time period. Witness testimony about activities at or near the mansion on the night of the murders was limited and sometimes contradictory, creating gaps in the investigation's understanding of what occurred at the property during the relevant time frame. The implications could suggest that a more thorough investigation of the neighborhood and surrounding properties might have revealed additional evidence or witness testimony that could have affected the outcome of the criminal trial. The psychological impact of living in a property associated with such a notorious criminal case affects both the residents and the broader community. The mansion's association with the Simpson case created a stigma that affected its marketability and the comfort level of potential buyers and neighbors. The property's history influenced its subsequent ownership and use, with buyers often seeking to modify or renovate the structure to reduce its association with the criminal case. These modifications might have affected or concealed evidence that was not discovered during the original investigation. The cultural significance of the mansion in American criminal justice history has made it a subject of ongoing fascination and speculation, with various theories about hidden evidence or undiscovered aspects of the case continuing to circulate among true crime enthusiasts and amateur investigators. The passage of time since the original investigation has allowed for the development of new perspectives and theories about the case, though the legal principle of double jeopardy prevents Simpson from being retried for the murders regardless of any new evidence that might be discovered. Questions arise about whether the psychological and cultural factors surrounding the mansion might have influenced how thoroughly it was searched, or whether fear of public reaction might have affected investigative decisions during the original case. The architectural features of Simpson's mansion, including its foundation, flooring, and structural elements, were typical of 1970s construction in the Brentwood area. The property's age and construction methods might have created opportunities for concealing evidence, or might have affected how evidence was preserved over time. The mansion's foundation and subflooring consisted of standard materials and construction techniques for luxury homes built during that era, though variations in construction quality and materials might have affected evidence preservation or concealment possibilities. Renovation and maintenance work conducted on the property during Simpson's ownership might have inadvertently concealed or destroyed evidence, or might have created opportunities for deliberate evidence disposal that were not apparent to investigators. The property's landscaping and outdoor features included extensive grounds with mature trees, gardens, and hardscaping that could potentially conceal evidence or provide locations for evidence disposal that might not have been thoroughly searched. Legal experts note that construction and architectural analysis can sometimes reveal evidence of structural modifications or unusual features that might suggest attempts to conceal evidence or might indicate areas that warrant more detailed investigation. The timeline of Simpson's activities on June 12, 1994, included his presence at the mansion during critical hours when the murders are believed to have occurred. The prosecution's theory of the case required Simpson to have committed the murders in Brentwood and returned to his Rockingham mansion within a specific time frame. The defense argued that the timeline was impossible and that Simpson's presence at the mansion during certain periods was established by telephone records and witness testimony that created an alibi for the time of the murders. The physical evidence found at the mansion, including blood drops and the infamous glove, was central to establishing the prosecution's timeline and theory of how Simpson returned home after committing the murders. Questions about the accuracy of the timeline and the reliability of evidence used to establish Simpson's whereabouts during critical hours remain subjects of debate among legal experts and case analysts. The implications could suggest that additional evidence about Simpson's activities at the mansion during the evening of June 12, 1994, might provide new insights into the accuracy of competing theories about his involvement in the murders. The financial pressures and lifestyle changes Simpson experienced during the early 1990s might have created circumstances or motivations that were not fully explored during the criminal trial. His divorce from Nicole Brown Simpson, child custody arrangements, and financial obligations created stress and conflict that formed the background for the prosecution's motive theory. The mansion served as the center of Simpson's domestic life during a period of significant personal and financial upheaval. The property was also where he maintained relationships with various friends, associates, and romantic partners who might have observed behavior or circumstances relevant to understanding his mental state and activities. Simpson's use of the mansion for entertaining and social activities created opportunities for witnesses to observe his behavior, relationships, and lifestyle during the period leading up to the murders, though many of these potential witnesses were not called to testify or were not thoroughly interviewed. The social dynamics and relationships centered around the mansion might have included information about Simpson's attitudes, statements, or behaviors that could have provided additional context for understanding his potential involvement in the crimes. Questions arise about whether a more thorough investigation of Simpson's social relationships and activities at the mansion might have revealed evidence of planning, motive, or post-crime behavior that was not presented during the original trial. The preservation and analysis of biological evidence from the mansion has been a subject of ongoing scientific and legal interest. The blood evidence collected from various locations within the property was central to the prosecution's case, though questions about contamination and chain of custody affected its reliability. Modern DNA analysis techniques are significantly more sensitive and reliable than the methods available in the 1990s, potentially allowing for reanalysis of existing evidence or detection of trace amounts of genetic material that were previously undetectable. The degradation of biological evidence over time affects its usefulness for analysis, though proper storage and preservation techniques can maintain the viability of DNA and other biological materials for decades under appropriate conditions. The original evidence collection and storage procedures used by the LAPD were criticized during the trial, raising questions about whether evidence might have been lost, contaminated, or compromised in ways that affected its reliability for analysis. Legal experts wonder whether modern forensic techniques applied to preserved evidence from the mansion might yield new information or might confirm or contradict conclusions reached during the original investigation. The cultural and social impact of the Simpson case extended far beyond the criminal trial to influence American discussions about race, celebrity, law enforcement, and the justice system. The mansion became a symbol of these broader social issues and continues to generate interest among scholars, journalists, and the general public. The case's influence on popular culture has included numerous books, documentaries, television series, and academic studies that continue to examine various aspects of the investigation and trial. This ongoing attention has kept questions about evidence and investigation techniques in the public consciousness. The legal precedents established by the Simpson case, particularly regarding DNA evidence, expert testimony, and media coverage of criminal trials, continue to influence contemporary criminal justice proceedings and legal education. The mansion's role in American legal history has made it a landmark that attracts continued attention from true crime enthusiasts, legal scholars, and tourists interested in the case and its cultural significance. The broader implications of the case for understanding celebrity justice, racial dynamics in the legal system, and the relationship between media coverage and legal proceedings remain subjects of academic and social interest. The potential for new technology and investigative techniques to provide fresh insights into cold cases has created ongoing interest in whether the Simpson case might benefit from modern forensic science. Advances in DNA analysis, digital forensics, and crime scene reconstruction might reveal new information about evidence from the mansion. The legal barriers to reopening the Simpson case, including double jeopardy protections and statutes of limitations, would prevent criminal prosecution, even if new evidence were discovered, though such evidence might have historical or academic value. The scientific and educational value of applying modern techniques to historical cases can provide insights into the evolution of forensic science and can help improve contemporary investigative methods and evidence analysis procedures. The public interest in the case ensures that any new discoveries or analysis would receive significant media attention and might influence public understanding of the events and their aftermath. Questions remain about whether the passage of time and advances in technology might eventually provide new insights into one of America's most controversial criminal cases, or whether the questions raised by the trial of the century will remain forever unanswered. The investigation techniques and technologies available in the 1990s were significantly less advanced than contemporary forensic capabilities. Ground-penetrating radar, advanced DNA sequencing, digital evidence recovery, and sophisticated crime scene reconstruction techniques that are standard in modern investigations were either unavailable or in their infancy during the original Simpson investigation. The potential application of these modern techniques to Simpson's former mansion could theoretically reveal evidence that was not detectable using 1990s technology. Soil analysis, structural examination, and environmental testing might identify trace evidence or environmental markers that could provide new insights into activities that occurred at the property. The limitations of 1990s crime scene photography and documentation meant that investigators relied on less sophisticated methods for recording and analyzing physical evidence. Modern 3D scanning and digital reconstruction techniques could provide more detailed analysis of the property's layout and the spatial relationships between pieces of evidence. The chain of custody and evidence preservation standards used during the original investigation have been subjects of criticism and legal challenge. Modern evidence handling protocols are more rigorous and might reveal whether evidence was properly collected and preserved for potential future analysis. The scientific community's understanding of forensic evidence, including blood pattern analysis, DNA interpretation, and trace evidence examination, has evolved significantly since the 1990s. These advances might allow for new interpretations of existing evidence, or might reveal the limitations of conclusions reached during the original investigation. The broader implications of forensic science advancement for understanding historical criminal cases extend beyond the Simpson case to include numerous other investigations that might benefit from modern analytical techniques. The potential for new technology to solve cold cases or provide new insights into controversial cases continues to generate interest among law enforcement agencies, legal scholars, and the general public. The ethical and legal considerations surrounding the reopening or re-examination of closed cases involve complex questions about double jeopardy protections, victim and family rights, and the appropriate use of limited investigative resources. These considerations affect how new evidence or analytical techniques might be applied to historical cases. The educational value of examining historical cases using modern techniques can provide insights into the evolution of investigative methods and can help train contemporary investigators in the application of new technologies and analytical approaches. The public interest in seeing justice served and questions answered in high-profile cases must be balanced against legal protections and practical limitations that affect the feasibility and appropriateness of reopening closed investigations. The legacy of the Simpson case continues to influence American legal culture, forensic science education, and public understanding of the criminal justice system, ensuring that questions about evidence and investigation techniques remain subjects of ongoing interest and debate. If you're as fascinated by these potential revelations about hidden evidence as we are, go ahead and like this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about the possibility of modern forensic techniques revealing new evidence in famous cold cases? Should historical criminal cases be subject to re-examination using advanced technology? We want to hear your perspective on how evolving science might change our understanding of controversial cases. Then, hit subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss our coverage of true crime mysteries and the ongoing evolution of criminal investigation techniques. Thanks for watching.